To the 19th episode of Green Thumbs and Good Vibes, your podcast all about growing fruits and vegetables and the sustainable lifestyle that comes along with it. As always, we're your hosts, Collin and Mitchell. We're so happy that you chose to join us today. In today's podcast, kind of a spring update, we're also going to be touching on the March to the Moon challenge that we're doing for the month of March and just a variety of topics. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. This one is going to be packed with a bunch of fun topics to discuss. So, Mitchell, I think we're going to start off with the March to the Moon. So how has it been going? Remind everybody of what we're doing there.
Yeah, it's been going well. So basically we're just, building tall sort of structures in our garden that's going to make use of the land even better than just planting it right into the ground. When you can add some verticalness to your growing, you'll just increase your yield exponentially. So, the first thing we're going to start with is actually in your background, which is the plant tower. And this is the homemade plant tower that is supposed to be a lot more cost efficient than just, buying something like this from the store.
Yeah. So let's start by telling the folks, okay, so kind of what is the process here? What is the first step? What materials are we using? So mainly some of them you can see here. The orange parts there, that's a pool noodle. We have buckets here. These buckets are 2-gallon buckets, and I have 5 of them, but I think Mitchell's making one with 6. It's just all having to do with some of the sizing of some of the other objects. Now, in the center of this, there is a pipe, a PEX pipe, with some holes drilled in it, and each of the buckets has holes drilled in it as well. So yeah, here's some ideas of kind of what the bucket is, what did it look like before. So you're drilling holes in the side, of course, and that's where the plants go, and drilling holes in the bottoms as well. So that as the water, which is how this is going to grow, this is a hydroponic or aeroponic type growing style. So aeroponic is more accurate, but a lot of people have heard of hydroponic before, meaning growing in water. There is some elements of that. Oh, we got a little visitor here. And along with the let's see, sorry, the little kitty made me lose my train of thought. But so along with the holes in the side, holes in the bottom, so that it's pumping the water up. Oh no, we were talking about hydroponic, right? So aeroponic means we're using air and water, so periods of no water sprayed on the roots along with periods of water being sprayed on the roots. The water will be kind of enriched with a little bit of fertilizer, as they won't be able to get it from the soil there, so we'll have to give it to them a different way, and we'll do that through the water. The kind of the heart of this is just a pump in the bottom, just it's about this big, real small water pump. It pumps the water up through that pipe, through the holes to spray the roots, and then that will eventually drip back down, hitting the roots again and feeding them throughout the day. And then the way that we do the periods of air and water is a timer. So you just plug it into a little timer, set those little bobbles, and you'll get like 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, and then off during the night as well.
Never fully understood aeroponic versus hydroponic.
That's my understanding. I might be leaving something out, but I think that's my understanding of what it is. Yeah,
it's interesting because like aeroponic or not aeroponic, water, hydroponic.
Yeah.
It's sometimes hard to get oxygen into the water, so you have to have a bubbler or something to get it in there, and that you run into that issue with soil as well. If your soil's too dense and compacted, the air can't get in there. But aeroponic, it's interesting because the air is already there. You're kind of just providing the water and the fertilizer in that water.
Right, exactly.
So I think that'll be pretty successful.
So one thing I forgot to mention is the bucket on the very bottom, which you can't see from the current position, but it's down below this fifth white bucket. There's a 5-gallon bucket. This bucket doesn't have holes in the bottom, the bottom or the sides like these top ones do. This 5-gallon bucket is more of the water reservoir, so that as it drips down, it has a place to sit, and then that's also where the pump lives. So if you're kind of thinking about doing this yourself, you're going to need 5 to 6 2-gallon buckets, 1 5-gallon bucket, a pool noodle, a water pump, and a PEX pipe for the center, as well as any bits and bobs that you need to make that PEX pipe work with your particular pump. And then you also need to cap it on the very top so that the water pressure is contained within the pipe and you get some good pressure with the spray. So So as you can see, Mitchell is still in the process of building this. So I'm just going to go through a few things that I ran into as issues. So I had to buy a second PEX pipe because the first one, I went a little advantageous with the holes. I drilled a lot of holes. They were a little bit too big. And my pump wasn't able to get that pressure all the way up to the top bucket. So then I wasn't getting any water up there. This is actually, the top bucket is actually the most important place to get water, because even if just the top bucket is getting water, everything else is at least getting dripped down and fed that way. So what I'd recommend is maybe definitely the bottom bucket, maybe even the second bucket, depending on what size you're going with. Don't drill any holes in the pipe for these two buckets. Let them get fed just through the drip system. So make sure that when you're drilling the holes on these buckets and the lids, that you get the holes to the edge where those roots will be. Eventually, they'll get long enough to work their way further into the bucket, but we want to make sure that you're getting holes around the edge as well. So then these top three, I drilled holes for, and then I was able to get a good pressure going all the way up, getting good spray up here, and then having it drip down. So that was really the only issue I ran into. The kind of the plans that we were using for this recommended using 6, but this is what we were saying about the difference. So at my Home Depot, they didn't sell PEX pipe in 6-foot lengths. They sold it in 5-foot lengths and 20-foot lengths. So I was kind of forced to choose the 5-foot as the 20-foot. I don't know what I would have done with the other 15 feet.
How you get that out of there?
Right. Yeah. What giant truck are these guys taking where they can take some of those? But anyway, yeah. So that was the only issue I ran into. So then I kind of had to adjust the plan. It's the exact same thing. We're just downgrading by one bucket.
Are there lids on the individual buckets as
yeah,
well?
I'll stand up and kind of take the mic with me here so I can show you and everybody a little bit more detail.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was a little confusing on me when I watched the video, but...
Yeah, so now that it's close up, you can see here the bucket, the lid is on top of the bucket, and then this bucket is on top of the lid. And the way that these are all connected, right? Like I can lift the whole thing as one. The way that that's done is just through some zip ties. So along with the holes on the lid and the holes on the bottom of the bucket, make sure you drill some smaller holes to feed your zip tie through. And then you can tighten those up. And then basically the unit of this is a bucket that's empty on top and then has a lid attached to the bottom. And then you just continue that all the way up. And then only the top one has the lid, the lid on the top only, without a bucket on top of that. So.
Okay.
And then here, maybe I can show the black bucket. There's the 5-gallon bucket, and that's where the pump lives, like I was talking about. Another thing I wanted to make sure and mention is you definitely want to work a little bit with the water flow. So I'm always kind of turning these buckets, these white buckets, through the lid on the 5-gallon, which is zip tied to the bottom bucket. I can detach that from the 5-gallon on the very bottom and pivot it so that the water is hitting these in a way where it's not spraying out of any of the holes, but it's reaching just behind all of them. So that's something to do. So just to let you know, like I did 5 holes for the plants and I did 4 holes on the inside for the water to spray.
So it kind of gets all those in-betweens, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And like the smallest drill bit you own, do not use a big one, because like one big hole in that pipe, that's all the pressure the pump can do. Well, at least mine, I don't know, maybe the one that you'll get will be stronger, but yeah, you definitely want to make that like a pin, like just a pinhole, something as small as you can.
Yeah, like you said, you can't make them smaller once you drill those holes.
Yeah,
you got to deal with what you have.
You can't take them away. Yeah, I actually did the top 4 of this, and I had to take them away. I just put like a piece of waterproof tape around those holes, and then just left these 3. So yeah, there is a little. I still drilled too many on this, so just like really, I would drill a few. Do the top 2 buckets, put it in there, test it, see if you need more. What are you getting? Maybe add the 3rd one. You're doing 6, right?
Yeah, 6 2-gallon buckets.
Yeah, so maybe do like the top 3 and see how that goes before doing anything else.
Okay, I'll plan to have some plants in there by this next upcoming weekend.
Yeah, awesome.
Kind of feels like cheating a little bit, but like we mentioned, we're just gonna go to the store and buy some lettuce or whatever we want to put in there. Maybe some things that we do have growing, but for the most part, let's just buy some plants, some nice ones, and then spray off the roots. Like you were saying, with water, so it's completely aeroponic, and then just pop them in there.
Mm-hmm. And if they're young enough, there really shouldn't be any problem with this. You just want to, like you said, make sure that you get off all the soil on the roots, because you don't want to contaminate this with, like just think about like a chunk of perlite could get stuck in that pump and maybe clog up the system. So you just want to be careful of that. But I did try to do them in rock wool. One thing I ran into is these holes are very small in the pool noodle. So, maybe trimming a little bit of that will work. The rock wool is kind of the medium of choice for these types of gardens when you buy them regularly. So this just might be something a little bit different because of the size of these holes. I don't know. Maybe you can find pool noodles with different size holes. Maybe that's the key there, and I just got the wrong one. But it's something I'll just have to work around when we're testing it out.
Do you think there's smaller rock wool you could buy too that might fit your current size pool noodle?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I just saw a video today, and a guy recycled an ice cube tray, and the ice cube tray had the same silicone bottoms that we like on our trays. And he just drilled a hole in each ice cube tray, and then he had the same rock wool I had, but he just cut each square into like fourths, and then stuck it in each of the ice cube trays. And I was like, man, that would have been perfect if I did it that way. So now I have to like trim, trying to not disturb the roots that are in there, but we'll see.
I bet ice cube trays sell for a lot less than plant trays would. I feel like things get upcharged just because it's like a plant tray, even though they do the same thing essentially.
Right. Well, there's no holes in the bottom, so there is a little bit of, you got to work it just a little bit. You got to do one extra step. So, but if you can get them for half price, might be worth it. Maybe that's there's a good life hack for everybody.
Yeah. For your spring seed starting currently going on right now.
Yeah.
I just spent like $100 on all my trays. They're nice, those silicone ones, but
yeah, they're expensive.
Thankfully, it will last a couple years.
Wraps up the discussion on the March to the Moon March Challenge. Just as a reminder, well, we are going to talk about seed starting, which of course is built into the challenge. We got to get plants in these things, but just as a reminder, we are doing this, and then near the end of the month, we'll also be working on a vertical gardening installation in our personal gardens, and we'll kind of show you what that's all about and what our process was. And as a reminder, those vertical gardens have to use recycled pots from plants that we get from the nursery or you buy at the store. So, all right. Next thing we're going to talk about is our seed starting. If you did not see the last episode, this is a really great time to pause here and go check out all the varieties that we're going to be planting this year. In the last episode, we showed you each variety, and we went into, a good amount of detail on each one, spending a couple minutes reading how to plant, what the advice is, and what season it's best for. So now that we've done it, we're going to talk kind of a breakdown. What are we most excited about? How many of these things did we plant? What things surprised us? What didn't? And what new techniques we've tried. So go into it, Mitchell. What's because you're more, I think you just started your stuff like in a big group, everything kind of all at once. So what have you done new this year?
I really expanded the amount of plant cells that I have. That's like number one, because I don't know if you get that, but last year I was getting really frustrated because I just didn't have enough room or cells at all to do what I wanted to do. So planning is so big when it comes into seed starting. So I did that a lot better this year. And I'm really excited for the sweet corn variety that we got. I wish I had it around me, but
I can grab it. I have it right here. Go ahead.
Kind of the reddish one. But I started 24 seeds of corn for that sweet corn. So I'm going to have a little, like a little corn forest in my backyard garden, basically. And I'm super excited about that. Plus for the ornamental corns, I think I started 8 glass gems since I've already done that one before. And it did very well. And then I started 12 of our other ornamental corn. So since...
As a reminder, here's what they are. So the first one you were talking about is the Martin Jewel, I think. This one,
yes. That's the one that I have in my greenhouse too. It's like about 6 feet tall that I grew in the winter. I'm hoping I get at least a couple corn kernels from it.
Yeah, we'll have a video out on that soon. You got to make a video on that thing. It's so cool. Okay, and then one of the ornamentals, this isn't the glass gem. We showed that one last year. You can even see a harvest video on that if you're interested. But this one, okay, striped japonica, I think is how we chose to pronounce it. But there it is.
Probably wrong, but
yeah, we're doing our best. On the leaves here, the main like cool thing is that pink or red variegation on the leaves. Very cool. As well as obviously the corn is beautiful and red as well. So really cool. Yeah, that's so super exciting.
I'm still trying to decide too. Help me decide for the corn. Last year I did one variety of ornamental corn in the front yard and one variety of sweet corn in the backyard, so they wouldn't cross pollinate. But now I have 3 varieties. So what do I do? Just kind of spread them out as much as I can, probably.
I think knowing your setup, I think what you could do, especially with the glass gem, it being a corn that is you're only doing 8 of, you could do one in the front, you could do one in the back near everything, near the house, then go back to your like blueberry or blackberry patch back there and till up a little area, or do like a grouping of grow bags, however you want to do it. The 30-gallon, use your 30-gallon for that. That'd be a perfect use. Way back out there, plant the 8 of those back there. And I think that because you'd have like, what would that be, like 100 feet at least in between each variety.
Ornamental up front, sweet corn right back in the garden, and then another ornamental way in the back.
Well, actually, I might have a fun fact that might change your mind. So remember last year in our 3 sisters, we did a sweet corn variety, right? I think we did like the golden, just like a normal yellow sweet corn, right? Well, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use the ornamental varieties in the 3 sisters because the stalks are hardier. And you probably know that because you grew them, and they both worked for you. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, my beans definitely did better on my glass gem corn. I noticed it kind of strangled the sweet corn.
Exactly. I guess the stalks just are bendier. And so what happened to both of us where the bean just like pulls the stalk down and, basically it doesn't, because the idea is like it's left after you harvest the corn as a structure, right? And so that doesn't happen when it's like ripping it down and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That might change your mind. So maybe you do sweet corn front yard, ornamental backyard if you want to do a 3 sisters setup again, and then another ornamental way back.
Are you going to try to do 3 sisters again this year?
I'd like to. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm going to, from learning last year, I'm going to start my beans a lot later, I think.
Yes.
So the structure actually has time to grow.
I'm going to grow some beans just somewhere else. Like I'll just have that time of beans, I'll just have like on a trellis on its own. And then I'll plant another like round for the corn, I think is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best ground cover this year that we have?
Because we've got the squashes. We've got 2 different kinds of squashes.
Pumpkin,
cucumber.
Watermelon.
Probably not pumpkin because
I don't want a huge every bit
pumpkin.
Of that soil. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want a huge pumpkin in the middle of my corn plants.
Yeah, we got them all.
Probably not watermelon either. I feel like that kind of needs its own area.
Yeah. And I think the squash isn't a vining squash, actually. I think it's like a summer squash.
Are they both?
Did we get 2 different? Oh.
Kabocha.
Yeah, the kabocha. I bet you that's the one.
Oh, okay. That's
the one. Yeah. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I started 4 of each of pretty much all those today, like the watermelon, the pumpkin, all the squashes.
Yeah, I have 4 as well of all of those. Let's see, what did I go heavy on? I'm trying to think. Oh, like my tomatoes, man. Like I started 4, but of every variety that I could find. And we got multiple packs. Cool. Like we got multiple, maybe I can show one, but multiple of these blends where they color code the seeds. and give you multiple varieties. This is a really great way if you're not aware of this.
That
It's
was
a really great
cool.
way to get like a high value, as long as you aren't wanting, I don't know, 30 of these plants. And you can still get 30 plants, but it'll just be like a few of these, a few of these. And if you're into more of a variety sort of thing, which we all are, I think, as backyard gardeners, the more variety, the better. If you're more of like someone who's running a stand, like a farmer's market type, then maybe you're looking more for production. But variety is always so fun to do in the garden. So some of these blends are a great way to do it. So I have like,
that color.
I probably have 30 dwarf tomatoes in my variety, 3 or 4 varieties in my greenhouse, along with a couple cherry tomatoes in that mix. So 30 all put together. And then I have another 4 cherry varieties inside. Yeah, and the Romas as well, which I did 8 of.
I did 12 Romas. I'm really excited about the Romas.
Yeah. Give me a nice patch.
Yeah. I kind of neglected my Romas last year, but they still produced very well. So I'm excited to actually take good care of them and see what can happen.
Right.
Especially getting 2 different harvests during the year, like in late spring, kind of early summer, and then in the fall, or like late summer.
So one technique I've seen with these, maybe this would be fun to try, is so when you plant your area, you plant it in a square shape, or if it's in a bed, like you have a lot of those beds up front, maybe one of those would work well, but in a little square shape. And then you put 4, like the T-posts, like the green ones with the white tops that you hammer in. One of those at each corner. And then as they grow, because you don't want to prune these as much, you just kind of let them bush everywhere. And they start to kind of explode out of that. You get garden twine and you just wrap them all together around those 4 posts. And then it keeps it tight in a nice little square.
That's for the tomatoes?
The growth. For the Romas specifically, yeah, for the indeterminate. For Roma
specifically?
Like for indeterminate specifically. So like if you're going to do a big patch of Romas, doing it with that technique might help kind of keep it neat and tidy.
I think Romas are typically determinate, right?
Oh, did I say indeterminate?
Does that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I meant determinate. Yeah. Determinate varieties. Yeah, any that are going to, you're not going to prune, and they're going to get, kind of all their fruit at once. That's what we mean by determinate. Sorry about that. But yeah.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Indeterminate they're just a headache. They're fun, but my gosh.
Well, you lose control of them at some point. At some point they get so tall. They say 6 feet, but that's like in the time frame that they give you on the pack, right? They say it's like probably a 120 to 140 day fruiting period or something like that. Like in between the day from planting, I mean. Anyway, but if you let it go longer than that, it's just going to keep growing. I've got like 10-foot tall ones that like fell. I made like a huge archway for it. But anyway, yeah.
They still overtake it.
Right.
They're fun though. You got to
go crazy. But I'm still growing a bunch of them.
Our tomatillos will probably be pretty similar too.
Yeah, I've had a tough germination rate on that. Just for me.
Tough? Really?
Yeah, I think I planted 4. I got 1. So I need to do another set of those.
Yeah, those seeds are kind of small. I mean, they're tomato seeds, so
basically
that makes sense. But yeah,
maybe basically. Maybe it's just like a tough variety too. Could be like, just one that's a little bit tougher. So
it might really.
But I'm excited for them
because I think it's like a Central America plant. That could be way off.
Oh, it needs a little extra heat.
Possibly.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's definitely a warm weather plant.
Yeah. Maybe the heating mat would be a good addition to that. Maybe next time I'll try that. I do have 1 heating mat, but
yeah, I just have 1 as well. I use it, but
I can choose.
Yeah, I just kind of throw it under whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I throw it under my pepper, like things that take a long time to sprout, where I feel like there's a long period for something to go wrong. I put it under those, like keep them warm.
That's true, yeah.
All right, let's see what else. So I want to talk about the big pumpkins as well. So those seedlings are enormous. I was telling Mitchell before the podcast, like I had to transplant them. I probably had them in for less than 2 weeks, like a 10-day sort of thing. And then I had to transplant them outside because I could tell they were already getting huge. And they were like shading out just with their little seedling leaves, shading out like the things next to it. So, but I got 4 of them, so they're working well.
So we're
and
getting our
put 'em
money's
in,
worth for those.
yeah, I tried to
Sounds
put them in
like.
like a real big pot too, 1 gallon. So, because I just feel like with a plant that large, it just needs that extra size before going in the ground.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't cut my seed when I planted them, so I'm curious.
Oh, yeah,
Do
we should talk about that. So with
you went,
large seeds,
yeah.
sometimes you just cut a little bit off the end and it can increase, decrease the amount of time it takes for them to germinate. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
did that with a couple of the big pumpkins. But to be honest, Mitchell, like I don't know that I saw a difference between, like, for instance, the watermelon is in the same tray. It came up too. It just wasn't
Came
like
up.
a behemoth of a plant, but I think that's more variety and genetics than anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's really a problem. Here is something that I have run into though, where I feel like it would help. If you're getting this thing where like your seedlings are coming up and the seed like shell is inhibiting the leaves from spreading out and getting that initial sun, and you're getting that a lot, then I would cut, because I think that would make it easier for the seedling to kind of leave the shell behind. And I've seen that before, and I didn't have any of those problems with the big pumpkins. So maybe that's what it's really good for. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I'll have to pluck like the seed off of the
Yeah,
sapling when it comes up. Especially like beans are really bad about that, I've noticed.
yeah, beans are, and I've had it happen a lot with like spinach for some reason. Just
Oh,
I
the
don't know.
little tiny seed sticking on
Yeah,
the. Yeah, I've had that too.
yeah, and that's like the toughest one, because like trying to get it off, and sometimes you rip off a little bit of the leaf, and it's like
Yeah, it's like performing surgery. You got to
yeah,
be
you got to be
so
little
precise.
tweezers. Oh.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's see, what else do we want to talk about? There was, because I think we pretty much covered seeds. That's kind of what's
I think
exciting,
so.
what our plan is, kind of how many we planted of the most exciting varieties. So
Yeah, if you want to talk about how we're preparing our garden beds for spring, and I think it would be cool too to talk about where we're thinking of putting some of these plants once we actually transplant them out into the garden.
oh yeah, good idea. So I think that there's like really 2 main ways to prepare an area for like a new season, kind of refresh the soil and all that. And I don't know that one is better than the other, but I've used them both with success. And the first one would be to take the area. Obviously, we want to clear away any old plants and that type of thing. And then we want to just like break up the top 4 to 6 inches of soil. I like to use like a garden fork, something like that. But like shovels are great, even a hand shovel, get in there, elbow grease, just going to take longer, but clean that up. Probably remove any trellises and things like that in there as well. Get it nice and clean, and then add in like amendments in the form of manures. I like cow manure, chicken manure, and compost as well. Some people just like to add compost. That's great too, especially if you make your own at home and it's really rich. I don't see any reason that wouldn't be plenty of food for the plants. And then, if it's like an in-ground area at this point, I would recommend like some form of tilling it in, even just getting back in there with the fork or a shovel and kind of mixing it in. That can be just as well. But also, if it's a huge area, that's going to take a long time. So they do, you can rent a tiller, buy a tiller. And even for small areas, if you're someone who's interested in that, they do like hobby tillers on Amazon for, pretty good price. And they're just electric. You plug them in. You can even get those in like a large raised bed and till it up, or, anything like that. So those can be really useful tools for sure. The other way I think is like granular fertilizer type amendments, where you go in with like an even sort of powder of some sort and apply that as recommended onto, the area. And then just mix that in or scratch that in. I would still do the first couple steps of obviously clearing the area, but I would also break up the topsoil just a little bit before adding that in. And then water it in. I think it would be a good idea too. Kind of get it dispersed. And then I always add mulch, of course. Mulch is the secret, right? You got to kind of, especially with the manure, like let it bake under the mulch for a week or two before you plant. That's going to be super great for the plants.
And we both with the straw mulch, right?
Yeah. I would really recommend it for people who haven't tried straw. Like, chopped up leaves is pretty good too. I wouldn't really use wood chips unless you're doing like fruit trees. There is a place for them there, but yeah, the straw's the best, and it also breaks down the best too. So
yeah, that's what I was about to say about wood chips. Is they kind of, I mean, they can definitely work for sure, but they kind of get stuck in the dirt, and then I feel like they don't break down as quickly as straw does.
No,
it doesn't disturb the dirt as much. You can plant in it, and it's totally fine. You can't really plant in wood chips. It's not enough structure.
And like if you think about it, like if you're getting like some fertilizer in like a watering can, for instance, if that wood is dry, which it's going to probably be, it's probably going to dry out before the soil does. That's the idea, right? It's going to absorb a lot of that, just the liquid into the wood, and it's not going to get down to the roots of the plants for a long time, like until that breaks down,
Yeah.
So that's another reason it doesn't work as well, I would say. So the straw's the best. Long story short.
Would you use compost plus a granular fertilizer, or is that probably overkill?
I don't know. I mean, it just depends on like your compost. I would say you definitely want to lower the amount of granular fertilizer you're using if you're adding compost as well. But I think it's a timing thing too. Like if you're doing this a day before you plant out, I would say let's stick with the compost, and just leave it at that. If you're doing this like 3 weeks before you plant out, I say really get it in there. Do both, sure, because it's going to have time to spread out naturally, through kind of the microbiome of the soil into a larger area, and it's going to enrich it deeper, and it's going to be more, like I said, dispersed so that it doesn't burn the roots, because we've run into that, with fertilization, of course.
Yeah, doing all of this a couple weeks beforehand just so things can settle, I think is really important as well.
Yeah,
like you're saying.
Especially with the manures. Sometimes those manures can be strong. All right.
So you're gonna...
That's I mean, are you doing anything else other than those two main things, topping stuff off and doing it kind of that way?
I think that's about like the first method, and then just adding back in structures and stuff and trellises and all that. And then I always try to plant my taller plants on the north side as well of the garden.
Great.
I think is what it is, like in the garden bed, so the sun doesn't shade out the smaller plants when it's shining on the garden bed. Since the sun, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of on the south side of the horizon usually.
In the summer, you mean?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So with all these seeds starting, you need to know where to put plants. Once they start getting big, it's like, oh crap, what do I do now?
Right. And even if you think about it like east to west, like if it's on the north side, then it's still not gonna shade it out, right? Because you're in the other axis, basically. I don't know if you can visualize that like I can, but yeah, that's a great tip. I've kind of been lacking in that. There's also the chop and drop method. Like if there's some things in your garden, if you have a lot of stuff in your garden bed still, or you did something like a cover crop, like now is definitely the time to chop that back and then chop it up as well, and then work it into the soil, and then maybe even add another layer of soil or definitely a thick layer of mulch on top before you get in. I love to do this with my perennial plants. The chop and drop method for sure is better, because with perennials, especially if they're already established, they have a vast root system. They don't need as much like direct fertilization. Things like artichokes and asparagus is what I have in mind, right? But if you can chop and drop like the fern of an asparagus, the leaves and stem of an artichoke, which are always left over because we're not really harvesting that, and I chip it or chop it up and then spread it over, that's the perfect fertilizer because it's made right of what the plant needs. So
yeah, just the nutrients are right in there in those stems.
All right. Yep.
I wonder if I can do that with my strawberries, but they don't really have enough woody kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if there's like old and dead leaves, doing, getting those,
yeah, I could do that.
breaking them
Chop
up.
it up.
I don't see any problem with that.
Hmm.
So that's about all we have to talk about today. I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about the March to the Moon challenge and some updates on that. Maybe go out, try to build your own tower garden, our seed starting, our favorite things on that, and a little bit of the plan for the future of this month, as well as the future of the season, kind of how we're prepping for that. So I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for viewing. If you've made it this far, think about subscribing to our channel. We do a lot of 60-second type videos, making it quick and easy for you to learn about gardening, as well as these longer form podcasts where you can listen to us kind of brainstorm and discuss how we approach gardening. Mitchell, anything you want to say before we head out?
I think I'm good. Just telling everyone to get those seeds started. If you don't do it now, you're going to regret it. It's going to warm up before you know it. It's going to be here.
Your neighbor's going to have tomatoes. You're going to be like, I don't have tomatoes yet because I started late.
I don't want to ask them. It would be rude.
Right. That's all right. But I love those fresh tomatoes. I got to have them.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Maybe in the summer we can do some kind of some weekly updates. Maybe doing the podcast a little bit more often in shorter spurts where we can kind of show like, here's what we harvested this week. Maybe some fun recipes that we did with it. Because I really want to, use everything.
Yeah, we got salsas to make and
that's it.
Just all sorts. I can't wait with all the peppers and tomatoes we got going.
Maybe we can do a podcast from the kitchen one day.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Us making our own salsa, walking you through a canning or a pickling. Yeah.
I like it. Okay.
Cool. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.
Take it easy.